Okay, let's get started. Welcome to today's webinar in our series on artificial intelligence and human learning. I'm Lewis Johnson, the overall host of the series, and we're going to be talking today about how teachers can use artificial intelligence technology to help learners recover ground that they may have lost due to COVID-19 closures. This is a very important topic now. A lot of students are returning to school to a changed educational environment. And so many of them have needs that now need to be addressed, and teachers need help in order to address those needs most effectively. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. First of all, let's review what the current situation is under COVID-19. So UNESCO has been tracking the number of students who are affected by school closures due to COVID-19. And as you see, the most latest reports indicate over 800 million students are being affected by COVID-19 related closures. Some of them are partial closures, some of them are total closures. So that's nearly 50% of all learners in a variety of different countries. And so as students are coming back to school, the question is, how much ground have they lost during the time that they've been away from school? So this chart is a projection that the Brookings Institute made back in March when schools started to close, saying, well, okay, what would we expect in terms of learning gains and losses, in this case in reading skills, for students returning in September? And they made two projections, one for fourth graders and one for sixth graders. And you see, really, the projections is a wide disparity in learning achievement at this time. So there will be some students who manage to keep learning in remote learning, manage to keep learning over the summer. And so they are quite farther along now than they were earlier in the year. At least that's what's projected. On the other hand, students whose education was disrupted and have not had opportunity to continue to improve their skills over the summer, they will have fallen back. And in fact, some of them will be at an achievement level that is lower than they were a year ago. So of course, this is a big problem for students. It's also a big problem for teachers, because now teachers have to deal with students, provide teaching to students who are at a wide range of achievement and not let any of the students continue to fall behind. Here in the United States, we're particularly concerned about English language learners. In our schools here in the US, we have many students whose native language is not English. And many of those students come from families that have less access to computing resources. And so they need more help in general to keep up with a class that is being taught in English. And when teachers are overworked, it's harder for teachers to provide that help. So we would project these kind of problems in any school system where you have students whose native language is not the language of instruction. They're more likely to fall behind. And so teachers need to give them greater attention. And how can they do that if their time is being overcommitted by the available teaching resources? And what I mean here is, if instruction is being done totally online via what we sometimes refer to as Zoom school, or if it is a hybrid school configuration where some students are online and some students are in class, this is very difficult and time-consuming for teachers to manage. So many teachers are complaining now that they find the online teaching regime to be exhausting, and the challenge of handling both in person and online at the same time is doubly challenging without suitable support. So this increases the risk that some students who are already have fallen behind will fall even farther behind over the coming school year. So to summarize, what are the impacts that COVID-19 is having on learners? Well, COVID-19 has exposed the economic disparities between learners and has exacerbated them due to unequal access to learning resources. It's resulting in increased disparities in learning outcomes. And then on top of that, we have the concern that many students have feelings of loneliness and isolation when they are learning on their own. And a result of that is that motivation suffers, and so they're even more likely to fall behind or even to drop out entirely. So virtual truancy is a concern that we increasingly see in many schools. What's the impact of COVID-19 on teaching? Well, there are too many demands on teacher time and attention in these Zoom school and hybrid school configurations. And it's harder for teachers when working remotely to assess students' knowledge and needs, social and emotional needs, and it's harder to address them. It's harder to keep students engaged and accountable for their work. And we see a big demand for teacher professional development and resources that help teachers deal with these new technologies. So in fact, this webinar that you are taking today is an example of professional development resources that we are providing to teachers in this situation. So, but fortunately, there are a number of ways in which artificial intelligence can help, both to provide learners with a more effective and meaningful learning experience, and also to reduce the burdens on teachers. And so we're going to be talking today quite a bit about how this applies in the context of English language learning, but the same principles and methods can apply to teaching of other subjects as well. And in fact, if you're interested in application in some areas, you can contact me. I'll have my contact information at the end of these slides, and I can put you in contact with people who are applying artificial technology in mathematics, in science, in other areas, all with the goal of helping students stay engaged, on track, and making progress. So in the case of language learning, what AI can do is it can be used to create simulations of realistic conversations with avatars that speak and understand the language. So this addresses the problem that many language learners have had, is that they've been away from class for a long period of time, so they haven't had much opportunity to practice speaking the language and talking with native speakers. So with AI technology, learners can practice asynchronously at their own pace. The technology provides immediate feedback as well as personalized instruction in the areas where students need to improve. And through this practice and this personalized instruction, learners can quickly refresh and recover lost skills. So this can overcome now the problem of reduction in student achievement that we talked about a moment ago. The analytics that AI can provide on learner performance can be very helpful for teachers to identify which students are progressing, which ones are disengaged, which ones are struggling. So even if the students are working asynchronously, teachers can keep track on how well the students are doing without a huge investment in time. And so that time saving, it can be a real lifesaver for teachers in this difficult teaching environment that we face. And I'll give some examples of how that works here. I'll do this in the context of the AI architecture that we have developed at Alelo called Nskill. And so what Nskill does is, first of all, it provides students with asynchronous communicative practice opportunities with AI avatars in simulations of realistic situations. It provides formative assessments, in other words, assessments of how well the students are doing and where they need to improve. It provides feedback in the specific areas where they need to improve. It then automatically selects a personalized set of exercises for each learner on the skills that they're weak in. And then it provides analytics for teachers as well as for learners. So the learners can track their own progress, and that motivates them to continue to practice and improve. And we provide analytics for teachers so they can quickly identify which students seem to be struggling. So I'll now give you a bit of a live demonstration. So let me bring up my web browser here. And what I have here, so you can access Nskill from any web browser. That could be on a laptop computer, as the case is here, or it could be on a mobile device. And in fact, many students, we find, the students actually who progress the most tend to access Nskill on their mobile devices because it's more convenient for them, and they tend to practice more and therefore get more benefit out of the practice. We've created a number of different courses for English language learners as well as for other subject areas. The ones that we're rolling out now is, well, there's a basic English course for beginners in conversational English. There is a transitional English course aimed more at intermediate level learners. And then there is a new course that we've developed called Refresher English. And this is, we've adjusted the scoring in Refresher English to be appropriate for learners who may have achieved good English proficiency in the past and now have lost proficiency. And so this gives them a target that they can aim at for quickly regaining their proficiency. And I'll show you a bit how that works. So we're going to look at the new Refresher English course here. We're going to look at a particular simulation in that course called Trip to New York. So in this scenario, I'm at a train station. I'm talking with a ticket agent, and I want to buy a ticket to New York. I need to arrive in time for a play that I'm going to see there. And so to do this successfully, I need to have a conversation with a ticket agent, make sure that I book on the right train that arrives at the right time, that I reserve space for luggage, etc. And so we've designed this so that it can be used by learners whose English is rusty and just getting back up to speed, as well as by learners who are building up their proficiency again. So I'm going to start from the standpoint of a learner who is struggling and just getting back into English, and then we'll switch to a high proficiency interaction. So you'll see a little bit of both.
Hi, welcome to the Metropolitan train station. Where are you traveling to?
Okay, so that might be a little bit too much English for a student whose listening skills need some practice. But as a student, I can ask for the avatar repeat. Sorry, could you say that again?
Hi, welcome to the Metropolitan train station. Where are you traveling to?
I also have access to a transcript of what took place in the conversation. Just one moment, there's a question that came up in the conversation. Yes, nice, very clear. Good. All right, well, let's continue here. So, let's see. The lady says, where are you traveling to? So I might say, so how exactly should I answer her question? I can look for hints. There we go. So here are a couple of possible things that I might say, but an important thing to keep in mind for this AI technology is it does not limit the student to saying specific phrases. You can say just about anything that is appropriate in this setting, even make some mistakes, and the ticket lady here will understand. We do it that way because we want to motivate students to keep practicing conversations. Even if they make a few mistakes, if they're understandable, the conversation will continue. And the platform can follow up on the mistakes later, but here we want to keep students practicing. So she says, where am I traveling to? I want to go to New York.
Great, I can help you plan your trip to New York. What day would you like to depart?
You see, by the way, in Refresher English that the transcript went away. Now, I can call it up again, but we really want, so it's available at any time, but we want students to get to the point where they don't need to read the transcripts and the prompts in order to engage in the conversation. And in fact, Nskill is keeping count of the number of hint requests. And so that is one metric that indicates to what extent is the student able to engage in conversation unassisted. So let's see, she says, what day would you like to depart? So we constantly collect data, recordings from English language learners around the world, and we use that data to train our models so that they can recognize common learner mistakes. So for example, I'll respond in an incorrect way. I want to leave at 1st Mai.
I have a couple of trains that day. Does the train leaving at 2 p.m. work for you?
So I made a couple of mistakes. I used the wrong English preposition, at instead of on. I mispronounced may as my, a common mispronunciation that we see in our data. Nevertheless, the ticket lady here is able to understand what I meant to say. And then I'll say, okay, train leaving at 2 p.m. Yes, that will be fine, thank you.
Okay, a one-way ticket in first class is $175, and a coach ticket is $100. Would you like a first class or coach ticket?
So to finish out the example, I'll now continue the conversation as a fluent native speaker, just so you can see for contrast. Get me a coach ticket, please.
Okay, do you need a second ticket to return?
Yes, please.
What day would you like to return?
I'd like to return on May 7th.
There's only one train leaving New York that day. It leaves at 11 a.m. Is that okay?
Sure, that'll be fine.
Okay, would you like a first class ticket for $175 or a coach ticket for $100?
I'm on a budget, so give me a coach ticket, please.
Okay, we charge $20 for each bag and allow up to 2 bags. Will you have any luggage?
Yes, I'm going to bring 4 bags with me.
Okay, I'll have your total in a moment. Great, I have 2 coach tickets for you and 2 bags. That will be $240. Enjoy New York.
So let's see how well I did. So now we're going to get feedback on my performance, which was not very good. So so the overall mastery score here, where a very good student would get up around 100%. Here I only got 27%. And so there are a couple reasons for that. One is I did not meet all of the objectives of the conversation, and we'll see in a moment which ones that I actually didn't do well on. And the number of conversational turns per minute was quite low. So what a conversational turn is an exchange between the avatar and the learner. So the avatar says something, the learner listens and responds. So this is a metric English teachers may not have seen before because I had no opportunity to measure this automatically. But this is a clear indication of fluency, right? That if you can engage in a larger number of conversational turns per minute, then that shows you have greater fluency than somebody whose turns are very slow. So I had a very low score here in part because I was relying on all those hints. Part of it also because I was, of course, giving this demonstration and talking with you. It's also tracking the amount of time spent. And this is a very interesting metric because it gives you a sense of how long did it take overall for the student to complete the conversation. And so on one hand, you see it's good. I spent over 5 minutes practicing this one conversation. But what's not good about that is that that amount of time is too high for a high proficiency English speaker. We would really like to see a student be able to complete this scenario in significantly less time. Then this is broken down further. We can see which things I did well, which ones I did not do well. So I told Sophia, the ticket agent, when I want to travel. I gave dates for departure and return. But I did not ask enough questions about departure and arrival times. In fact, I just said, you know, I took her advice, but in fact, it was the wrong train. It will arrive in New York too late. Whereas if I had thought critically and asked further questions, I might have gotten onto a train that fits my schedule. I did stay within my budget, so that's good. So now I have a choice. It has already selected a set of practice exercises for me. So I can go and work on those if I like to improve my language skills, for example, prepositions, time phrases. I made some mistakes there, so that's likely to pick up here. Or I can go back and practice the conversation again. And it's important, teachers, to know that students, you should encourage students to practice these conversations multiple times. Try saying different things. See what response the avatar gives you. You don't get the full learning benefit if you just do it once. Just as you wouldn't learn English if you just did one practice conversation. It's through repeated practice that your fluency improves. Now I can actually see here my history of performance. So you can see I've practiced on a couple of different conversations. You can see how much time I spent. Well, prepared a certain amount of time, but you know, ought to practice more. I can also then look in more detail at how well I did, and you can see my progression over time. So I got 27% just now, But this morning, gee, I got over 100%. And you might ask, how can one possibly get over 100%? The reason is that we scale the mastery scores based upon proficiency that we expect learners at each level to be able to achieve. So for this refresher English, we set it at the level where intermediate level students should be able to get up to around 100%. I, of course, am a native speaker of English, so I can do better than an intermediate level learner would. So that was why it's possible for me to achieve an even higher score. But looking at the history of a learner's performance gives insight in how well the students are doing, how well and how rapidly they're progressing. So it's much more meaningful than simply finding out, did the student complete the homework assignment or not? This really provides insight into each learner's learning trajectory. So again, let's look now, I'll go back to the slides and go into this in a bit more detail. So as you saw, we get analytics on learner performance. So here's what a target that we would hope students at this level to be able to get to through practice. So turns per minute around 5 and a mastery score between 80% and 100%. And they get feedback on areas where they need to improve. Here it is an example of one of the practice exercises. And in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through these right now, but I included one example here so you can see a bit how this works. So these are interactive, media enriched exercises, many of which incorporate speech recognition technology. And in these exercises, learners get feedback on the accuracy of their language, not just the intelligibility of it. So here in this exercise, the prompt is, ask the clerk what floor your room is on. And the response was, what floor my room is on. This, by the way, is a common intermediate level English mistake of just repeating back the word order of the question. So no, that's not it. So the student can keep practicing until they give a response of the right form of what floor is my room on. So this provides further insight in the degree of grammatical mastery that students have. And we see here that in the dashboard you get review of how many times the learner attempted each simulation and how many times did they complete it. So there are going to be some instances where learners, they may try it and then they just give up or they get stuck. And so that's another indication. Maybe, you know, if a student is repeatedly getting stuck, then they're having some sort of problem that a teacher might need to help them with. And you see the progression over time. So now let's look at this from the teacher's perspective. So now we are providing, for the first time with Nskill, a teacher dashboard that gives teachers access to these analytics that we are collecting. So I'll show you here how this works. And again, this is also accessible through a web browser. So here, for example, a particular teacher has a few different classes that they're teaching. They can see overall how many students have enrolled. Of the students who are supposed to be in the class, how many of them have gotten online and used the platform? Some of them may have not. And then we can look in more detail at how the individual students are performing. So first of all, teachers can decide which levels, which sets of learning content should be made available to the students. So this particular teacher has decided to make basic and transitional English available, but has decided to skip the refresher English module. So that's fine. And then we see a list of students and their performance on the platform. And so you see here right away that there's some students who have done very little at all. So here's one student who never even has signed in yet. So what's going on? This student may have just overlooked it or is just tuning out, what have you. We need to follow up with that student and make sure that they get on the platform. We see a couple of students who've got on, but they haven't done anything with it yet to speak of. So they need to be encouraged to get on, catch up with the class and practice. And then we can see other students who have put varying amounts of time into practice. So like this student here put in a total of 20 minutes of practice. And as you saw, a typical conversation can be a few minutes in duration. So 20 minutes isn't bad, but let's take a look in more detail and we'll see, actually this is not very good at all. This student has only attempted 2 simulations, has only attempted them once, has gotten low scores and has spent a lot of time going through these. So as you saw, 5 minutes is a long time. 14 minutes is even longer. So what's this student doing? Is this student trying to look up the answers online? What's going on here? So this student is not yet engaging with the platform in a manner that is conducive to developing spoken proficiency. So this student needs some help or some attention from the teacher. Let's look at this student here who spent spent over an hour so far. Okay, so here we're seeing performance that's more promising. So we're seeing scores in the intermediate range. So, between 30% and 80%, that's good. We see that this learner has practiced a bunch of different simulations, a bunch of different conversations, so that's good. Most of them, though, he's only tried once, so he should go back and practice them some more. But at the same time, the student has practiced some of them multiple times and is getting some decent scores here. So like this student, let's look closely. So we can see here a steady progression of mastery scores. So 58, 66, 79. This is the type of profile that we like to see of students who are practicing, who are engaged with the task and are improving. We also did see that this student's able to achieve more objectives and the number of turns per minute is going up. My only concern with this student is the student is still relying on hints from time to time to get through it. So if I were this student's teacher, I would commend them on their progress and their effort, but I would encourage the student to keep trying, seeing if they can complete these conversations without relying on hints. And I would tell them, I think you can do even better than this. So keep practicing and let's see how good a score you can get. Now let's look at another one of these students, the one in the, this one who spent nearly 3 hours. That sounds encouraging until we look at the details and we see some areas of concern here. So this student has not gotten a good score on any of these simulations. And by the way, I neglected to mention, this is actual learner data from students in Mexico. This is not made up data. This actually shows you different students progressing through the platform. So we can see here how much students have practiced on each of the different simulations. You can see some of them, she's practiced multiple times, but still doesn't seem to be doing particularly well. In fact, on this one here, you can see the first couple of times she didn't get any score, just 0%. Was able to make very little progress. The last time she was able to get through it, but it took her an awful long time to do it. So I would, as a teacher, I would want to reach out to this student, perhaps ask them to get on a Zoom call with me and show me how they are interacting with the platform. But in general, making sure that they are interacting in a good way with the platform. If they're not, if this student is not able to improve, get good scores soon, they might be at risk of starting to get frustrated and disengaging, and that's not what we want our students to do. So these provide, these statistics provide insight into how students are progressing, and are helpful, but of course are no substitute for actually observing students, in a conversational situation. And again, this can be a challenge for teachers who have a lot of students remotely. How do you engage one-on-one with each of these, with them to see how well they perform? Well, some teachers using Nskill address this issue by having their students record videos on WhatsApp talking in English. Here, for example, are a couple of videos from a class in Mexico. And you can tell from these videos very quickly which students are doing well and which ones are struggling. So let me play a little bit of each of these and you'll see what I'm talking about. So first of all, the student who is struggling.
My name is Paola. Alelo for me is an app to practice a conversation with avatar. I started using this app 3 months ago for my class of English.
So she's able to put together sentences, but she's having to think a lot about what she says, and she makes some mistakes along the way. Contrast with this student over here.
Hello, my name is Jenitza Martinez, and I'm going to talk to you about my experience using Alelo. I started to using Alelo like 3 months ago when the teacher told us to use it. And Alelo is a platform where you...
So we'll stop here, but you can see pretty quickly which students are doing well, which students are struggling. And what teachers tell us that this helps students across the board, but it helps some students more than others. So now with access to the analytics that I showed you, teachers are now able to ensure that students more consistently make progress and stay on track.
Hello?
We also have modules at higher levels of language proficiency and for business English topics. And I won't go into too much of that detail right now, but if you're interested, I'll be happy to provide you more information about this. In this particular scenario here, we put the learner in a simulated meeting with their manager and with a coworker, and they're talking about different training methods and what would be the best approach. And to do well in this situation requires effective use and persuasive use of language and the ability to construct clear, coherent arguments in support of your position. So these of course are hallmarks of advanced levels of language proficiency and what are needed in order to be able to communicate at a professional level. Nskill is now being used around the world in a number of different countries, primarily in Latin America, as well. We have products in the United States, of course, in different countries across Europe. We just, in fact, signed up a new reseller in Turkey. We've got we're expanding in the Arabian Gulf. We're expanding Colombia, and we're getting ready to do some tests in China. And we're very excited about that. In fact, we were going to start in China early this year, and then COVID-19 interrupted everybody's plans. But now that things are getting back to normal in China, and it's more difficult for English-speaking teachers to travel to China. So there's a greater need for technologies that can help learners develop and improve their English language skills. So we see a great opportunity there. So again, to summarize, the new Nskill products that we have provided specifically for the COVID-19 situation. First of all, our new enhanced version 3 platform of Nskill, which includes the teacher analytics that I talked about, the basic English, transitional English, and refresher English, as well as the effective and persuasive communication course. Meanwhile, we are developing a new course in Spanish you might be interested in, and developing material for other skills as well. So to get started with Nskill, if you want to incorporate it in your class, we have compiled a set of professional development materials which we are making available to teachers. It's all available on our website for free, some of which we developed ourselves, some which teachers using the platform have developed and shared with us and are happy to share with other teachers. So for example, this is an example, a tutorial from one of the schools in Mexico of how to get started on the platform. We have a series of videos for teachers and for students, as well as recordings of these webinars. These are part of the professional development package that we make available. We also provide scope and sequence, sample curricula, things that you can use to make it easy to integrate Nskill into your teaching, whether you're doing it remotely, in a hybrid form, or totally in person. What we find typically works well is for students, so you start each unit with an introductory class where the teacher can introduce the specific skills and topics that the students are going to practice during the week. And then they can practice with Alelo on their own. And then everybody gets together at the end of the week for further speaking classes, further learning and practice. So this saves teachers quite a bit of time. And because the teachers are tracking how the students are doing in that class at the end of the week, the teacher can focus in on the specific areas that many students might be having problems with, for example. Students can practice either in the computer lab or at home. And of course, now it's very important that students have the ability to practice at home. And because teachers are able to track students' progress, teachers can encourage students to keep practicing and improve their score over time. We also find it useful periodically to have students go back and try simulations that they had practiced before to see, have they retained their skills? Have they improved? What we typically see in the data is that students, when they go back and practice a simulation that they have not practiced for a month or more, their score might initially drop some, but then it will quickly increase and surpass what it was before. If that's the case, then that's a good indication that the student's proficiency is generally improving and that they're not simply trying to memorize their way through the simulations. We provide alignments with the CanDo statements in the CEFR, Common European Framework of Reference. And so this makes it relatively easy to integrate Nskill simulations with other curricula. If you're using a particular curriculum and would like advice on how to integrate into that curriculum, let us know. We have sample scopes and sequences for different popular curricula that show how to integrate the simulations with those specific scopes and sequences. So finally, I just want to emphasize that we are here to help you during this difficult time. Those of you who attended, I'm glad that you did. We offer certificates of completion for teachers who have attended this webinar. We are providing free trials of Nskill English during this pandemic. We provide free advice on technical and instructional issues. To contact us, best way is to reach out to inquiries@alelo.com. And by the way, if you want a certificate of completion, write to inquiries and we'll be sure to get one out to you. Or you can contact me directly if you have particular questions of how to integrate this technology with your teaching. I'd be happy to speak with you about that. So that's the end of my prepared presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions. You can type your questions in the chat window and I will be happy to respond to them. And meanwhile, yes, thanks for everybody who has attended. I see several repeat attendees of our webinars. I'm very glad to see you all attending again. I hope that you are managing okay in the current COVID-19 situation. Okay, well, one question that came up is where is Nskill particularly being used, and what are specific examples of schools that are taking advantage of it? And as I said, we've had the greatest experience across Latin America, and in Peru, in Chile, in Honduras, in a number of Latin American countries. I really am most excited though about what this teachers in Mexico are doing. And if anyone has questions, I would be happy to put you in contact with them. In fact, we have a little WhatsApp group of teachers on WhatsApp who are sharing experiences with using Alelo. I'll be happy to put you in contact with them. So I'm getting comments that it was all very clear. Well, I'm glad to hear that. And again, if you have any further questions, something comes to mind, let us know. We'll be happy to respond to them. We'll certainly include that in our professional development materials. So it looks like we're good for now. I know you're all busy, so I'll let you go. Thank you much for attending. And also to let your colleagues know, there were a number of people who told us they would like to attend, but they're frankly too busy getting their classes going right now. We understand that. So we will do another presentation in a few weeks. I'll give you the date for that. But that way other people can join in. Okay? So thank you. Have a good day. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.